All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. So, I'm going to read chapter 22 of my novel called The Cold Darkness of the Night. And for those of you who don't know, it's my book that I've been writing about a guy who was an enforcer for a gang, but he gets out of the business when his wife gets pregnant with their daughter, but he ends up getting pulled back into it when their daughter gets kidnapped and easily and quickly slips right back into his violent ways. So, anyway, here is chapter 22 of The Cold Darkness of the Night. Bill Chevelle rolled through the edge of town, following the direct route to Sprig Way. The early morning sunlight glared off of the jet-black metal of the vehicle. The engine's powerful roar disturbed the quiet serenity of the environment. Few people in the neighborhood had begun their days, producing the persistent racket of residential areas. The driver followed the GPS's directions to their first destination. "All right," Brian said as his partner parked the car a few houses down from their target. "Think we should grab the shotguns for this? Since we want to finish with these people as quickly as possible, I think it makes sense to be as intimidating as we can." "Good idea," Bill responded, putting the car into neutral and pulling the emergency brake. Both men stepped out of the vehicle and circled to the trunk. The driver opened it, displaying the assassin's arsenal. They retrieved their weapons and loaded them in one fluid motion. Bill closed the trunk and asked, "Ready?" cradling his bulky gun. "Yup," Brian replied as he strode toward the building. The house was dilapidated. It used to be white, but now its color was closer to gray. The siding was askew in many spots, the paint peeled, and around the edges, vegetation crept in, overtaking the foundations. The lawn was in dire need of a cut. Brian's footsteps reverberated off of the cracked, crumbling cement walkway. It guided him through the long yellowing grass as he approached the structure. The massive man's partner fell in step behind him, letting him lead the way. Brian stopped for a second in front of the door until Bill reached him. He knocked on it with the butt of his shotgun after receiving a nod. They waited for about 5 seconds before the smaller man banged on the door again. The hitman waited for another few moments before Brian impatiently rang the doorbell. Almost as soon as this happened, the inner door violently swung inward, revealing an extremely slight man. He was 5'6" and so slender that he looked emaciated. The man wore a white sleeveless undershirt, green and gray plaid boxer shorts, and was barefoot. He yelled at Bill and Brian through the closed screen door. "What the fuck do you want?" he shouted furiously. "It's like 6 a.m. Who the fuck are you guys anyway?" He held the outer doorknob as he spat derision. The aggravated man rubbed his eyes while yelling at the criminals who had interrupted his slumber. He didn't care who they were. He just wanted to throw his fury at them. But as his retinas focused, he noticed that the two people were holding weapons. His eyes widened as the larger man reacted. Shock made him fully awake and alert. "We need to talk," Brian said coldly, in a tone so commanding that it would have even caused a ruthless killer to hesitate. He stepped into the house, holding the outer door open for Bill, and shoved past the stunned man into the cramped entryway. "Close the door, motherfucker," the gargantuan killer ordered calmly, motioning to it with his gun. The surprised man did as he was told, the demand snapping him out of paralysis. When the door closed, Bill aimed a shotgun at his head and stepped toward him. The threatened man raised his hands in the air, freezing, and stared apprehensively into the barrel of the gun. The emotion playing across his face wasn't fear, it was closer to caution. Bill noticed that this man was accustomed to weapons being waved around and knew how to handle himself in these situations. No one without sexual fetishes liked being threatened and beaten almost to death. Not even those trained for violent circumstances are comfortable with being defenseless, intimidated, and assaulted. "Let's go sit down," Bill instructed, his voice serene yet authoritative. The man nodded and walked to his living room. The assassins followed, keeping their guns trained on him. He stopped next to a long maroon couch, awaiting further orders. Bill gestured to the sofa with his weapon, and all three of them sat down. Who do you work for? Brian asked, laying his shotgun across his lap while thumbing the safety switch on. Sitting next to him, Bill pointed his gun at the cautious yet complacent man. Charlie, the circumspect man answered, knowing that cooperating would increase his chances of survival. Bill and his partner shared a knowing glance. Chuck Jackson? Brian asked, thinking of a small-time heroin dealer who had recently made big connections. These allowed him to gradually transition into the major leagues. Anyone who thought that politics played no role in the illegal drug trade was dead wrong. Successful sellers usually had stronger, mass-produced merchandise. However, you still had to interact with certain people and maintain mutual interests. Ironically, law enforcement usually knew the identities of the most powerful drug dealers, but rarely took them down. Bribing, scapegoating, threats, and violence were used to keep them in control. Imprisoning these leaders was difficult due to the innocent until proven guilty mantra. Most of the dealers didn't directly engage in criminal activity. They had others do their bidding. The least harmful ones were usually punished and incarcerated as a result. Internationally, corruption protected the criminal leaders. Occasionally, the authorities would attempt to achieve justice, but even if they dismantled an entire organization, the drug trade never collapsed. It was too massive, interconnected, and integrated into most aspects of culture. The illicit substance business was too big to fail. Many people made this claim about successful American banks before they went bankrupt and were bailed out of their fuck-ups by the government in 2008. Bringing down an entire facet of the illegal drug industry was like dismembering one head from a seven-headed dragon. If you cut off one, there were 6 more to deal with, all attacking simultaneously. They would snap with avalanches of razor-sharp teeth, spewing flames from their fiery gullets. Even if one head were removed, another would sprout up in its place, making any efforts to slay the beast futile. Yeah, replied the threatened man, maintaining composure. Did you hear about the little girl who got kidnapped? Asked Bill. Yes, he answered, after jogging his memory. Bill asked a follow-up question. Did Chuck have anything to do with that? The man with the gun pointing at his face could tell that this was the information that the guys had come to get. I don't know, he said with conviction. Why the fuck not? Brian responded, getting more aggressive. He didn't tell me or anyone I know that he took the girl, he said defensively. But he doesn't tell me everything. He's the boss. Bill hit the safety switch on his gun and struck the man in his face with it. He sprawled onto the floor. Both killers stood up to exercise their power over him. Are you sure, motherfucker? Brian exploded with rage. The injured man rolled onto his back to face them, feeling the giant bruise on his cheek and his black eye. He wiped blood gushing from his broken nose on the back of his hand. Yes, I'm sure, he reassured them calmly, in spite of his assault. Brian crouched down and grabbed his victim by his shirt, pulling his face toward him to make eye contact. You better be sure, bitch, he warned the man with sinister intent. You don't want us to find out you're lying. If we do, we're going to pay a little visit to your girl. Mandy, is it? And we're going to go pick up your little brother from school and say hello to him, too. The intimidating killer punched his prisoner in the face, which felt like getting hit with a brick. Dazed, he barely registered Brian's next question. Do we understand each other? The bloodied man answered by nodding profusely, despite the pain it caused. Yes, I understand. I'm telling the truth, and I won't say anything about this to anyone. You won't have to hurt Mandy or Joey. His composure steadily drained, fear and desperation creeping in to replace it. All right, Brian accepted, letting go of the shirt. The battered and bloodied man collapsed onto his living room floor, overcome by undulating waves of agony and humiliation. Brian and Bill left him to wallow in his suffering. All right. So that is chapter 22 of The Cold Darkness of the Night. If you like that and you haven't heard or seen the other chapters so far, check those out in the link for the description that I'll put, in the link for the other ones that I will put in the description for this video, rather. And also, if you want to read all of the novel chapters, I will add the link for that as well. All of my novel chapters that I've published so far on my blog, and I've published way more in there than I have read, than those that I've read on my YouTube channel. And like I always say, thanks so much to everyone for watching and liking this video and sharing it, and to those of you who subscribe to my channel, and leave comments if you want to as well. And also, especially, thank you very much to everyone who contributes to me on Patreon. I really appreciate that, and it means a lot to me. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all. All right, keep having mindgasms, everyone, and adios until next time.